longer. Now, most things are open and back to fairly normal, except for social businesses like gyms and restaurants and bars and nightclubs and sporting events. And that's tough because while, we hope that restaurants they're already open in a few counties in our state, but in terms of the Denver metro area, we hope they come back soon. I don't think anybody knows when, stadiums and large venues are going to be able to safely operate anywhere in the country. I think baseball is now talking about doing games without fans, and they're negotiating with their players to do that. But it's a tough time. I would love to hear how your businesses are doing, transitioning from stay at home to safer at home. We've worked on trying to make guidelines that are useful for different businesses. I know you all want to have as safe a work environment as possible for the foreseeable future. And, we're really looking at an ongoing basis to see what level of suppression of the virus we've achieved, and how, as we increase our ability to do testing and containment, how that factors in. We're continuing to make a lot of efforts around protecting our most vulnerable, people over 65. As employers, it's important your people over 65 don't come in unless they absolutely insist on it. They should have the priority for working from home and being able to come in a safe way, or work in positions that don't put them near other people. And we want to make sure that whatever we do is sustainable. So I'd love to hear from you about how your businesses are doing, what we can do or change to help, and any additional thoughts you have. And I'll turn it back over to you, Karen, to moderate.
Great, thanks so much. So we've got questions coming in through a chat box. Myself and Hunter will just be kind of popcorning them back and forth. But a good question coming in around disinfection. And are there sort of policies and protocols and guidance that we'll see being put in place to help businesses know what they need to do to disinfect properly, so that they feel safe enough and know that they're doing their part in terms of cleaning and disinfecting?
Yeah, so we recommend cleaning up. Well, remember the main vector for transmission is person to person, and the surfaces in the cleaning are important, and they will help, especially things like doorknobs. But the biggest factor will be how long you are next to other people who might be infected. So that's why we're want to work with employers to position workstations 8-10 feet apart where they can. In any consumer-facing positions, masks, and we recommend masks be implemented really at any employer. When an employee has it, there will be tracing, meaning we want to make sure we test even asymptomatic people who might have worked near them. The county health department may even want to test the whole company, or a big part of the company, or whoever is on that shift. So, those are the kinds of things that will flow out of it. The cleaning side is also very important. The good news is it's easy to clean. You don't need a lot of protocols. I mean, I think we have some up, but I mean, literally soap and water work very well. And of course, whoever's doing the cleaning should wear gloves. There are, antiviral and Clorox and all those things, Lysol, they all work well too, but it's just a good scrubbing. The virus is not very durable outside of people. Might last 24 to 48 hours on a surface, but in a droplet, cleaning is important. But the biggest way that people catch it is person to person.
Thank you. Hunter, you're up.
Thank you for joining us, Governor Polis. I think just one of the questions that has popped up multiple times is when will restaurants be able to open for dine-in service? And I think just given what we don't know about the virus, I think it would just be helpful to maybe discuss kind of how you and your staff are evaluating that, and what that may look like as you're thinking through it.
Yeah, we think we'll have enough data around in about 10 to 12 days to make that schedule. We hope it's soon. If the data says go, it'll be go. Restaurants are already open in Mesa County. I believe they're at 25% capacity. There's some other counties coming online soon at 50% capacity. It's likely that the Denver metro area would also be on reduced capacity when it comes back. But I think we're, as I said, about 10 to 12 days away from being able to give that, as long as the data holds up.
Hey, thank you. So questions, as I'm sure you know, a lot of questions from small businesses around access to capital. And unfortunately, we did see a lot of small businesses, micro businesses that weren't able to access the Triple P or the EIDL loan at the federal level. So can you talk a little bit about potential advocacy with the federal delegation and or state support to ensure that our small businesses may be able to access grants and loans so that they can keep their doors open?
Yeah, so most of that is federal. There's the Paycheck Protection Program. Hopefully, you've been able to help many of your small businesses access that 2.5 months of payroll. The average loan size in Colorado was hit the small business market. I think it was 150,000 or something. So a lot of these loans are 40,000, 30,000, 80,000. They're capped, of course. So that's very important. There's a second tranche of that. You know, talk to your bankers about it. But I've heard a lot of good stories of small businesses that have been able to access those resources.
So this is kind of a not necessarily a directly small business question, but it is one that I think impacts a lot of folks on this call. And this has come up a number of times. But are schools going to be able to reopen in the fall, or is this still very much open? I know a number of folks are seeing challenges with childcare and balancing family and work life right now.
Yeah, I expect that schools will be open in the fall. Not every parent might want to send their kids in, and there'll be more kids doing online than usual, but we fully expect the schools to be open, and we're working closely with the Department of Education on what that guidance looks like for making sure they're as safe as possible.
So some questions coming in about employer responsibilities in terms of if they have a client or a staff member who does call saying either they have symptoms or they've tested positive. As an employer, what is their responsibility in terms of notifying other staff, other clients, the county health department, quarantine recommendations? As an employer, what can they do to be sure they're doing their part?
Yeah, really cooperate with the county health officials. So if it is a COVID case, they will interview the person who has it, and then they're generally talking about who do they sit next to, who do they associate with at work, and county health may need help getting in touch with some of those employees. And so that's the best way to do it. Now, if you suspect you might have several cases in your workplace, an outbreak, then you can absolutely call your county health and they can help with more testing, releasing people who don't have it to go back to work sooner, screening out people who may be asymptomatic from working. They're very happy to help with that.
So this is a question from a person. We are a small theater and birthday venue. If we can maintain social distancing, can we have 10 or less, including employees? And I think just to broaden that out from theaters, what are some other considerations folks would want to think about if they work in event management or just around large gatherings?
Well, it's hard to have events with 10 or less people. I'm not even sure we call them events at that level, but certainly that is the guidance for, childcare, youth classes, personal training. All of those things are occurring, but they're in groups of 10 or less. We don't yet have a date for when people can have 200, 300 person celebrations, where we're advising people, for marriages, for funerals, for baptisms. Of course, you can proceed with the religious rite associated with it. Usually that just requires a few people, but you have to schedule the celebration of life, if it's a funeral, or the baptism celebration, or the big birthday or the wedding ceremony. You have to schedule that later when it's safer.
Great, thank you. So we're also getting a lot of questions, as you can imagine, from different sectors. So seeing a lot of questions come up from folks who are in sort of the exercise gym space, wanting to know sort of the decision-making process with that sector, as well as for areas that include sort of outdoor exercising, like outdoor pools and those sort of things. So I know it's hard to advise sort of specific sectors, but guidance around sort of decision making to help that industry feel like they understand what's coming.
Yeah, in the safer at home phase, gyms can have private training classes. Many are. They are not able to be open for the general public yet. They are businesses like restaurants or others that have people that are congregated together. And so we'll have the appropriate safety guidelines around that. But many are open for private training classes. And it's just a question of when they can, as soon as possible, how we can help them get open for the general public.
So we're starting to see a couple other questions of folks that are thinking ahead already to October, November, and holiday shopping. Do you think will those holiday shopping activities be impacted at all, or is this something that we're going to be able to kind of work through and develop a strategy around when that season comes?
Well, maybe you can tell me what you mean. I mean, the shopping is mostly open. I think, the only piece that's not yet are the indoor malls, and that'll be soon, but all other stores are open. We obviously, if there's other activities associated with Christmas, we'd want to have ones that don't have a lot of people that are packed together. But obviously stores are going to, want to draw people in, have sales, all those normal things too.
Sure. So I think it's kind of like holiday markets and then other holiday gatherings. So I know like Union Station, and I think it was Larimer Square last year that had the Christmas market, but I think you touched on that in your response.
Yeah, markets are fine. I mean, I believe farmers markets are even occurring now. I think there's some that are already starting up. Those are farmers markets. I know you're not asking about farmers markets, but that's what we have for summer.
Thanks. So a few questions coming in specific to the tourism industry and tourism sector. Interesting question around that they have guests who are sort of reserved and waitlisted for later on in 2020 or even 2021 reservations. A lot of these folks are coming from hard-hit states like New York. So, these hotel owners, ski destination tour companies are nervous to reach out to confirm. So what sort of guidance is there around tourism and how folks should handle this issue of safely bringing people into our state, even from hard-hit areas?
Well, it's, the airlines have cut back much of their service. I expect that we will have some tourists, but it's not going to be anywhere near the number of tourists that we normally have. I don't think Americans are traveling and flying around as much. Stores, restaurants are open. Lodging's open in most places. There's a few tourist areas that have shut down their lodging. Hopefully they'll be opening that soon. But this is just going to be a teeny fraction of what a normal is. There's not going to be I don't expect there to be a lot of tourists.
So this is an interesting question. So what guidance is there for commercial outfitters operating on public land? So like mountain bike guides, raft guides, and is the state where they should be getting information, or should they be referring to federal guidelines on that?
Yeah, so a lot of the information you're asking about can be found at Safer at Home, coloradosaferat-home.com. Let me make sure that's what we got here. I think that's it, coloradosaferat-home.com. Yeah, and so there's sector by sector guidance that should answer your questions for childcare, for field services and real estate, for personal recreation, which I think somebody asked about. So those are all available at coloradosaferat-home.com. Again, a lot of the stuff in small groups is happening in 10 and under. If it happened before with groups of 10 and under, it probably still can happen with 10 and under. But a lot of the large groups that we don't yet have the guidance out on there. But go ahead and check out any of that guidance. If you have any questions, just let us know, and it could be something that we're working on right now.
Governor Polis, I know we might be hard pressed for time, and again, apologies for the technical difficulties. I believe you're going to DC tomorrow. So from the Colorado small business community, we wanted to get a sense of sort of what are your top line messages that you're taking to the White House and in your conversations at DC, and how can we as a small business community support you and your advocacy with the federal delegation in the White House?
Well, I think it's important that they understand, the pain that small businesses are feeling. The difficulties that the cautious consumer behavior is causing. I want to make sure they're not just sequestered there in the White House and not hearing from kind of what's actually going on in the real world about all the difficulties that folks have, meeting their payroll and making their lease payment.
So do you have time for a couple more questions?
Sure.
Great. I can go ahead and do the next one. some questions on here about business owners' responsibilities. We know that there are folks for medical reasons aren't able to wear a mask. So questions about, should business owners be proactively telling folks they can't enter without a mask? Should they be providing masks? How do they handle this issue? Or is there guidance for situations in which it's people have medical challenges that keep them from wearing a mask?
Yeah, there's a very small percentage of people that under doctor's orders shouldn't be wearing a mask, well under 1% of the population. They're obviously exempt from any requirement that municipalities have done or that the state has done for retail workers. They should be working in a back room or away from customers if they can't wear a mask and be around others. Very few people. Yeah, we think it's a very good policy for stores to require masks for customers. A, it's good for your employee morale. B, it's good for customer morale. There will be customers that look into the store and turn away when they see there's people not wearing masks. So I think it's a very sound decision and very important to do.
Thank you. And so this is the last one, and this I think is going to be a challenge that's coming up and that will be discussed at some point. So business owners are really facing with down revenues, and if they have commercial property that they either own or rent, and property tax assessments are going to lag a little bit. So how's the state thinking about supporting those folks now? And then what suggestions can you offer for how they should navigate this given existing financial resources and some that we may be asking for at the federal level with the new stimulus package that's being negotiated right now?
Well, we've sort of delayed the due date for every type of tax that we can, for property, for sales, for income, no penalties. People can file late, people can pay late. I think the property was half is delayed and half was delayed a little bit and half was delayed longer. So we're trying to just do what we can to provide relief on that tax front with giving folks a lot longer to pay without having to pay any penalty for that. So I think folks are acting about the operating standards for restaurants. Yeah, they'll be out before restaurants open. They're being worked on now, so they should be out, probably sometime next week, and then restaurants would open the week after that. So we would hope that that folks would have at least a week with the restaurant guidelines before they go live. As an example, on April 27th, when stay-at-home ended, I think the guidelines came out the 25th and 26th for office workers that went back the 4th. So that gave offices about a week. Same with stores. Curbside pickup the 27th, they went back the 1st. They had 3 or 4 days. They didn't have a lot to do, honestly, just like decals on the floor and flow of traffic. So they took about 3 or 4 days to get ready. We would like for restaurants to have about a week to get ready.
Yeah. Should we squeeze in one more? You tell us when you need to go.
Go ahead.
Question specifically around childcare facilities. I know that's an issue you've worked a lot on, access to early childhood education, but guidance around sort of limiting numbers, 6-foot distancing can be really challenging with children. We also know that that's very hard for childcare centers to make financially sustainable, and we know that having access to childcare is really critical to the recovery and people getting back to work. So specific sort of guidance and assistance that you see coming out for that sector.
Yeah, we have that. Childcare is certainly open. I'm looking at this now. It's also on that Colorado Safer at Home site, childcare facilities. So it's currently they should be grouped in groups of 10, as a class of 10 with a teacher. The teacher doesn't count, so that's 11. Temperature checks, staggered meal times, those are all available there. For many of the little kids, they were already, 10 and under classes. We realize that that's smaller for older kids, and that's a change that is being made. And obviously, as we get ready for schools to return in the fall, we're also looking to see how that can be further relaxed. We certainly want our state to be one of the first. We are one of the first to reopen, to allow businesses to operate. With that, more freedom that people have in Colorado that they don't enjoy in many other states also comes responsibility, and this responsibility to our customers and to our employees We want to make sure that we do this well in Colorado, since we are one of the first to move rapidly towards businesses being able to compete and earn a living. We want to make sure that we get through this phase with responsibility as well.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your time. Again, we apologize to everybody for the technical challenges, kind of an unfortunate part of this new normal we're all navigating, but we hope to be able to continue these conversations. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, again for joining us. If you weren't here in the very beginning, please note that you're going to be receiving a survey. And if you could just take a couple minutes to provide us with feedback on if this session was helpful for you, as well as any ideas for future content. We are fiercely committed to doing everything we can to support the small business community in Colorado, but we can only do what we know based on the information we receive. So please provide us with ideas for future content that would be helpful. And I also want to really just thank everybody again for sticking with us through the technical challenges. Hopefully we'll be able to maybe get a round 2 of this event, because we know over 600 people registered, and we'd like to have everyone to have access to ask the governor's questions. Thank you to our co-sponsors, the African Chamber of Commerce, Be Local Colorado, Best for Colorado, the Black Business Initiative, the Center for Community Wealth Building, the Colorado LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, Colorado Reach Conference, Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce, the Commons on Champa, Downtown Greeley, Entrepreneurship for All, Good Business Colorado, the Latino Chamber of Commerce of Pueblo, Local First Durango, Pledge 1% Colorado, the Rocky Mountain Enterprise Employee Ownership Center, Rocky Mountain Microfinance Institute, Small Business Majority, Startup Colorado, the Bell Policy Center, and the Work-Life Partnership. You can learn more about all these organizations in the follow-up email and join any lists. And again, we hope to see you for our next programming geared at helping small business survive COVID.